I found out recently I'm lady years old. I was called a lady, and I was not happy about it. I was getting a smoothie, and the kid behind the register, I say kid, but I think he was about 28. He goes, this smoothie's for the lady over there in the sweater vest. I was like, first of all, it's not a sweater vest, okay? It's a sweater tank top. And second of all, have a little respect, okay? No woman under 78 years old ever wants to be called a lady, okay? We do not want that word used to describe us, ever. Like, I'd rather be called a whore. I'd rather him be like, this is for the whore in the back.
Good morning. It's Monday, Cold War Monday, February the 23rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the Cold War. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Maria, then Stu.
All right, we're 30 minutes away from the opening bell for a Monday. It has been a jam-packed morning of news. Take a look at futures. Dow Industrial's down 200 right now, 205. The Nasdaq's down 136. We will be watching the State of the Union address tomorrow night. The president will highlight his accomplishments. And then on Wednesday, we will hear reaction, and we will be watching NVIDIA. The company reports earnings on Wednesday. Expectations $1.53 a share on $65.87 billion. Take a look at AI stocks this morning with NVIDIA up and the others mixed. And we will continue following all of this tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And please stay safe in this blizzard. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Okay, good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. What a great day for America. Jack Hughes scored the winner in sudden death overtime, and the U.S. men's hockey team beat Canada to take Olympic gold. Our players repeatedly made clear they were proud to be Americans. That's a nice change, isn't it? Quickly to the markets. Here's how we open this Monday morning. Some selling in stocks. Dow off about 200. Nasdaq down about 130. Bitcoin, that's on the way down. 65,000. No, it just made it back up again. 66.1 is the price. As for the 10-year Treasury, the yield there is 4.06%. The 2-year Treasury yields 3.48%. Gold trading above $5,100 again, 5,163 to be precise per ounce. No change for gas this morning. Oil 66.93. It's up a bit. No change for gas. You're still looking at $2.93 for the average price of regular across the country. All right, here we go. On the show today, chaos in Mexico after a top cartel boss known as El Mencho was killed by Mexican authorities. The State Department had put a $15 million bounty on his head, and the U.S. did indeed supply some of the intel for his capture and killing. Widespread revenge violence has been reported, and Americans in the country have been told to shelter in place. Fallout from the Supreme Court decision striking down a large chunk of the president's tariff program. He has imposed a universal 15% tariff instead. He can do this by using a different part of the trade law. What we don't know is if the tariff money already collected will have to be returned, and what happens to the trade deals already negotiated. We're looking at a lot of litigation. Yeah, then there's the blizzard of 26, still raging across the Northeast, serious travel disruption, thousands of flight cancellations, power out for hundreds of thousands. We've already had more than a foot of snow in New York City, and it's expected to keep snowing until early afternoon. And here is a bizarre situation. You can be an emergency worker in New York. You can shovel snow if you show up at a sanitation garage with proof of ID. The mayor is a Democratic socialist, and he opposes voter ID. That means you can walk right in to vote, but to shovel snow, you need an ID. Monday, February the 23rd, 2026.
And that was Stuart Varney, of course, because he has to respect the unions. That's why he is insisting that the people that want to shovel snow show ID. Back in a minute. No, nonprofit news now. Now, back in a minute. Thank you. And now an article from the American Thinker, Democrat recipe to win, become Republicans, at least until they get elected.
Dem recipe to win. Become GOP. At least until they get elected. Fight. Fight. We've got blue on blue fighting here, and the bruises are big and red. A fellow by the name of Will Marshall, the founder and president of the Progressive Policy Institute, recently penned a piece for The Hill entitled, "The Midterms Aren't Enough. Democrats Must Campaign for the White House," in which he dons a Republican skin suit. He says, among many other things we will shortly go into, Democrats owe working people more than performative attacks on billionaires and new handouts from Washington. That's funny, because that's literally exactly what another prominent progressive, the New Republic's editor, Michael Tomasky, prescribed just recently as a must-do. Give the middle class lots of free stuff and a villain in fat cat corporate types. This is what you'd expect a progressive to say. Mr. Tomasky took 10,000 words to say it, but that was the upshot. But Mr. Marshall's advice, as you will shortly see, is so opposite that of Mr. Tomaski's that it makes me wonder if he slogged through his circumlocution and decided to be contrary, just to spite him for taking so damned long to say it. Because boy, howdy, did Mr. Marshall throw the wine glasses at the wall and go contrary. What's his big idea to win the White House? It all sounds very familiar, if you're a Republican. On immigration, Democrats are right to demand an end to brutal enforcement tactics. But where do they stand on the underlying issue of securing the border and enforcing U.S. immigration laws? Democrats must reassure voters they won't repeat the Biden administration's colossal error of making it easy for people to enter the country without permission. They should reaffirm the Obama and Clinton administration's resolute opposition to illegal immigration. And they should reject sanctuary city declarations as a gratuitous exercise in progressive moral preening. Wow. Other than the virtue signal regarding ICE. This posture on illegal immigration is virtually indistinguishable from Trump's. Biden's open border was a colossal error. What must their internal polling look like? And he advises that they should not only oppose, but resolutely oppose sanctuary cities on the basis of them being moral preening. That's a good hard slap, isn't it? Yikes. But surely they can't mean it. Surely they mean only to message moderation, then govern like a rabid liberal, as we've seen with Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger. And it gets worse if you're progressive. Below is an absolutely amazing laundry list from Mr. Marshall, especially since he is the founder of a progressive group. Keep that in mind as you read, because it's a stunner. He just knocks him down like bowling pins. On crime and public order, Democrats likewise need to distance themselves from the left's anti-police rhetoric, vow swift and certain punishment for lawbreakers, and dismantle homeless encampments that disfigure our cities. Democrats also should affirm that our shared national identity as Americans is more important than our different race, ethnic, and gender identities. And they should oppose attempts to excommunicate Democrats who express common sense qualms about transgender operations for children. Wait. No more demonizing the police. Swift and certain punishment for lawbreakers. Does that include illegals? It's a safe bet no. But wow, and tents lining sidewalks and populating public areas disfigure cities? That's quite a choice of words. And these homeless should be put where? Isn't that usually the cry? I notice he doesn't offer an answer. He likely doesn't care, as long as public spaces look good enough long enough to make the right impression. They've done it before. And stop with the balkanization of identity this and identity that. Race, ethnic, and gender. That's the whole ball of wax, man. You ain't got nothing left after that. But he wants it stopped. And knock off the cancel culture of their own. I notice he doesn't mention us. I guess it's okay to keep canceling us. And finally, at the end of this amazing paragraph, he acknowledges that qualms about butchering children is common sense. Since when? Since a winning lawsuit said so? Holy cow. Did he fall on his head? There's nothing progressive about any of that. Not one bit of it. That's like 80% of the GOP platform right there. In that one paragraph, you could do a Venn diagram and have quite the overlap. Amazingly, he's not done. He keeps going, attacking another liberal shibboleth. The party should also acknowledge that climate alarmism has failed to convince working class voters to embrace policies they see as producing energy scarcity and high fuel bills. Democrats instead should use the full suite of fuels and clean technologies to meet rising energy demand, including for data centers, while reducing carbon emissions on more realistic timetables. Failed to convince us is understating it. It's been a complete bust, with something like 2% of the public naming climate alarmism as a priority issue. So this is pragmatic, if insincere. The hard reality of high utility bills has, at long last, linked in this progressive's brain with their insane no-oil policies. This neural knitting is welcome, even if it doesn't produce any meaningful electricity. He then finishes with an admonition to keep their eyes on the prize and get a Democrat trifecta in 2028, White House, Senate, House, to reverse the Trump legacy once he's gone. That's going to require some ER-worthy whiplash if they mean all this rhetoric, but it's a safe bet they don't. It's just what they always do. Fake moderate during an election year, then govern hard left. They are who they are, radical, Marxist, neo-communists. And they won't change. Only their rhetoric does. What was it Van Jones said so long ago? I'm willing to forego the cheap satisfaction of the radical pose for the deep satisfaction of radical ends. Throw away the hippie clothes. Get a law degree, for instance. Or, as we're seeing in these progressive articles, run for office saying whatever you have to say to get elected. Put on a suit and tie and burrow in. Boy, have they done that. Deep state and all. Play the game, the long game.
Thank you. And now, what the liberals are doing to us destroys them. When a liberal harms conservatives socially, politically, they're making a decision far more consequential than they realize. In the moment, they believe that they are securing dominance, control, the upper hand. They think they have won because conservatives flinched, stayed quiet, or tried to reason with them. However, what liberals are really doing is something much more self-destructive. They're sabotaging their own future. Liberals are sacrificing long-term trust and meaning for the sake of short-term power. That's a catastrophic trade. The liberals, at their core, live in the present moment, but not in the wise, mindful way we often associate with living in the now. The liberals' relationship to time is pathological. They're not guided by a coherent story of who they are and where they are going. Liberals are driven by impulse, by what they need to maintain their fragile egos right now. So, in a moment of threat, when liberal superiority is questioned, when their control is challenged, they lash out. They gaslight, they lie, they humiliate, they punish. But they don't stop to ask the most important question. What are we destroying in the process? The answer, more often than not, is everything that could have been good for them. You see, meaningful relationships, ones built on honesty, reciprocity, and vulnerability, are the scaffolding of a meaningful life. That's not sentimentality, that's psychological truth. When someone tells you the truth about yourself, even when it hurts, they offer you the chance to evolve. The liberals don't see this. The liberals see correction as a threat. The liberal sees care as control. The liberals see closeness as an opportunity for exploitation or as something to be distrusted. So instead of receiving the gift, the liberals reject it, or worse, they destroy the giver. Actions have consequences, and those consequences are not always loud. They don't always arrive immediately. Sometimes they unfold slowly and quietly. Years later, the liberals will wonder why no one trusts them, why relationships never last, why there's always some breakdown, some fracture, some drama, and the reason is simple. Liberals undermine the future with every manipulative act in the present. Every time that liberals choose to dominate instead of relate, they erode the very possibility of peace, stability, or legacy. There's a paradox in this. Liberals are obsessed with status, with legacy, with being remembered as great or admirable. When liberals chose cruelty over humility, deceit over honesty, they became the architects of their own irrelevance. The liberals burn the bridge while standing on it. They mistake the fire for power. Let's not misunderstand this. When a liberal loses someone patient, self-aware, willing to grow, they're not just losing a partner, a friend, a confidant. They're losing a mirror, a reflection for them of what was still possible if only they had chosen accountability over arrogance. The liberal rarely sees this until it's too late. By the time the silence becomes deafening, by the time the circle shrinks and the admiration dries up, the damage is already done. What the liberals did to you wasn't just cruel, it was foolish, because conservatives were part of their opportunity for transformation, and by trying to control conservatives, they destroyed the very conditions that could have led to their growth. The liberals slammed the door on the one opportunity to create a better future, and in so doing, they locked themselves out. The tragedy of the liberals is not just that they hurt others, it's that they destroy themselves while doing it. They don't realize the cost until they are alone. Liberal power is an illusion. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's confident, but it's hollow. When time begins to chip away at the illusion, what's left is regret. Not the kind that humbles, but the kind that haunts. So in retrospect, one might ask, why did they do this? Remember this. They didn't just betray conservatives, they betrayed their own future. In choosing the automatic gratification of control, they forfeited the long-term gift of connection. When a liberal devalues a conservative to inflate himself, they believe that they are winning. They believe that they are rising higher by pushing conservatives lower. That maneuver, while temporarily satisfying to their ego, is not without cost. In fact, it is one of the most self-destructive choices they can make. What the liberals sacrifice in that moment is something far more profound than they understand. The possibility of authentic connection. The very thing that gives human life its meaning. The liberals are constantly engaged in a continual and desperate process of self-construction, and they're trying to build an identity out of image, admiration, and dominance. These, however, are brittle materials. They lack substance. They lack soul. So, in the liberals' inner emptiness, they can constantly seek external validation to hold themselves together. Anyone who offers truth becomes both a necessity and a threat. That's where the devaluation begins. The moment that the conservative stops mirroring back what it is that the liberals want to see, they must diminish the conservative. Why? Because conservative authenticity reveals liberal inauthenticity. Conservative strength unsettles liberals' fragility. Conservative boundaries threaten their control. So rather than risk the discomfort of self-examination, they choose projection. They twist the conservative's words, they mock the conservative's pain, they question the conservative's worth, all to keep their internal scaffolding from collapsing. Here's the irony. In doing so, they destroy the one thing that might have saved them, genuine connection. Intimacy that is rooted in truth, a bond that could have moved them from the shallows of performance into the depths of self-awareness. When liberals devalue conservatives, they're not just diminishing conservatives, they're retreating from reality itself. A life divorced from reality becomes filled with paranoia, instability, and loneliness. Liberals often think they are special because they don't need others. They imagine themselves as lone wolves or superior beings beyond the common frailties of vulnerability and interdependence. This, however, is a delusion. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
It's in your routine. You're not as deep as you think you are. You got to find a routine. I'm getting up at 3 and stick with it. I'm getting up at 5 and stick with it. Yeah, out of 365 days, we'll have a bad day or two. But I'm trying to tell you, the strength is in the routine. Find a routine and stick with it. No more dreaming. Dreaming is over. I need specifics. What are you doing on Monday? What are you doing on Tuesday? What are you doing on Wednesday? You need to be very specific. It's time to put your piecing together of your puzzle. Nobody gave me this. I earned it. Life wasn't a crystal stair for me. Didn't nobody give me a network. I earned a network. I worked my way to the NBA. I worked my way to the NFL. Everybody say, E, how did you crack the code? I grinded my way through the code. That's how I cracked it. I got up every day at 3. I don't care what the economy is doing. I don't care who the president is. Nobody helped me to get here. I had to get up. I had to go to class. I had to read. I had to study. I had to write. I understood that the dream is real, but the lifestyle is realer. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. Stay predictable. Stay consistent. And the reason why many of you are not getting it is because you're not consistent. You start and you stop. You get pumped up. You start strong, and then somewhere in the middle you quit. You have a little success, but you don't experience exponential growth because you're not consistent. You got to be persistent. You gotta be locked in. You can't scoreboard watch. Too many of you scoreboard watching. Every time you do something, you're looking up to see the score. You stopping working to look at yourself. You're not grinding. You glaring. You should be grinding and you looking at the score. The score is what it is. The score ain't about to change because you looked at it. Keep playing the game. Keep grinding. Keep working. And that other stuff will take care of itself. I'm challenging you to get from where you are. I'm challenging you to stop settling. I'm challenging you to stop accepting the life that was given to you. And I'm challenging you to give 120%. If you're going to do what you say you're going to do, be what you say you're going to be, you're going to have to lion me out. You a gazelle, you're going to come up short. You a gazelle, you're not always going to get what you want out of life. You a gazelle, you're going to have an average experience. You a student, I need you in lion mode. You a teacher, I need you in lion mode. You an entrepreneur, I need you in lion mode. You trying to lose weight, lion mode. You can't do nothing significant in gazelle mode. Nothing. Nothing impressive happens in gazelle mode. Nothing happens in run mode, give up mode, quit mode, scared mode, fearful mode. Nothing happens. Everything happens in lion mode like I'm coming to get you. You concentrate on this opportunity. You don't worry about tomorrow. You concentrate on this opportunity with all your might, with all your soul, with all your heart. You focus on this, and tomorrow will take care of itself.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, some meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now, the Cold War.
The location is Point Mugu Naval Air Station, California. The date is November 22nd, 1973. The Pacific Ocean is calm today, but 30,000 feet above the water, the air is about to be torn apart. Inside the cockpit of a pre-production F-14 Tomcat, Bureau number 157986, two men are sweating. They are not sweating because of the heat the environmental control system is screaming to keep the avionics cool. They are sweating because they are sitting on top of a bomb. Commander John Smoke Wilson looks at his fuel gauge. It is dropping fast. Attached to the belly of his aircraft are 6 massive white cylinders. They are AIM 5-4 Phoenix missiles. Together, they weigh nearly 6,000 pounds. That is the weight of 2 heavy pickup trucks strapped to a fighter jet. This aircraft was never designed to fight like this. The engineers said it was theoretically possible. The politicians in Washington said it was a waste of money. The Soviet spies watching from trawlers off the coast said it was a bluff. But right now, 50 miles away, 6 target drones are hurtling toward them at Mach speeds. They are simulating a Soviet bomber regiment, hell-bent on sinking an American aircraft carrier. In the back seat, Major Jack Horver stares at a round, green radar scope. It is the eye of the beast. Contacts are hot, the radio crackles. This is not a simulation. This is the moment that decides the future of naval warfare. If they fail, the F-14 program dies. If they fail, the Soviet Navy owns the oceans. Wilson's hand tightens on the stick. He doesn't know it yet, but in the next 38 seconds, he is going to make history. He is about to fire 6 missiles at 6 different targets, all at the exact same time. Welcome to the most expensive, dangerous, and terrifying trigger pull of the Cold War. Make sure you subscribe to Cold War Impact and hit that bell icon, because today we are going inside the cockpit of the impossible. To understand why 2 men would risk their lives to fire 6 missiles at once, we have to travel back to the frozen streets of Moscow in the late 1960s. The Soviet Union has a problem. They know they cannot build aircraft carriers as good as the Americans. The US Navy has a floating city in every ocean. They can project power anywhere, anytime. So, Admiral Sergei Gorshkov, the father of the modern Soviet Navy, comes up with a different solution. He doesn't want to fight the carriers. He wants to assassinate them. He develops a strategy called the Battle of the First Salvo. It is a strategy based on pure, cold mathematics. Gorshkov calculates that an American carrier battle group has a specific defensive capacity. Maybe they can shoot down 20 missiles at once, maybe 30. So, Gorshkov decides to overwhelm the system. He orders the construction of massive supersonic bombers like the Tu-22M backfire. He builds submarines that can launch cruise missiles from underwater. The plan is terrifyingly simple. Launch 100 missiles at the American fleet simultaneously. It is called a saturation attack. If the Americans have 50 defensive missiles and the Soviets launch 100 attacking missiles, 50 get through. The math says the Americans lose every single time. By 1970, the Pentagon is panicking. Their current fighter, the F-4 Phantom, is a legend, but it is old school. It uses a radar system that is like a flashlight in a dark room. To shoot a missile, the F-4 has to lock onto a single target and keep the radar pointed at it until the missile hits. While the Phantom is busy killing one bomber, the other 99 fly past it and sink the fleet. The Navy runs the simulations. The result is always the same. The carrier sinks. The Atlantic Ocean becomes a Soviet lake. They need a miracle. They need a fighter jet that can act like a battleship. They need a plane that can look at a sky full of enemies, pick out the most dangerous ones, and kill them all before they even get close. They need the Tomcat. Enter the Grumman F-14. When this plane rolls out of the hangar on Long Island, it looks like something from a science fiction movie. It is huge, it is heavy, and it has a trick up its sleeve, the wings. The first thing you notice are the wings. They move. This is called variable geometry. When the F-14 wants to fly fast, the wings sweep back, turning the plane into a dart. When it needs to land or turn tight, the wings sweep forward, giving it massive lift. It is a transformer, the brain. But the real weapon isn't the plane, it is the radar. The Hughes-Ann AWG-9. In 1973, this is the most powerful radar ever put on a tactical aircraft. It puts out 50 kilowatts of power. To give you an idea of how strong that is, if you stood in front of this radar on the deck of a carrier while it was transmitting, it would cook your internal organs. It would literally boil your blood. This radar does not just look, it thinks. It uses a track-while-scan mode. While older radars have to stop and stare at a target to track it, the AWG-9 sweeps the sky constantly. Its computer, one of the first microprocessors ever used in flight, remembers where every target is. It predicts where they are going. It can track 24 separate targets simultaneously. In 1973, this was magic. The Arrow, and then there is the missile. The AIM-54 Phoenix. This is not a dogfighting missile. This is a sniper rifle. It has a range of over 100 miles. It flies at Mach 5. That is 5 times the speed of sound. Each missile costs nearly $500,000. In today's money, that is millions per shot. The promise of the F-14 was simple. 1 plane, 6 missiles, 6 dead bombers. But in 1973, the program is in trouble. The engines are unreliable. The costs are skyrocketing. Congress is threatening to cancel the whole thing. They say it is too complex. They say the radar will never work in a real battle. The Navy is desperate. They need to prove the skeptics wrong. They decide to stage a test that is so audacious, so risky, that it will shut up the politicians forever. They call it the John Wayne test. The date is set, November 22nd. The location is the Pacific Missile Test Center. The Navy gathers every drone they can find. They take 3 BQM, 3 4 Firebees. These are high-speed target drones that simulate cruise missiles. They take 3 T-33 Shooting Star jets and convert them into drones to simulate bombers. They don't just line them up in a row. That would be too easy. They spread them out. The drones are programmed to fly at different altitudes. Some are high, at 25,000 feet. Others are low. They are flying at different speeds. This creates a nightmare scenario called radar clutter. Imagine trying to find a specific flashlight in a room full of mirrors and strobe lights. That is what the radar has to do. It has to filter out the ocean waves, the clouds, and the electronic noise, and find 6 tiny metal objects moving at high speed. Commander Smoke Wilson and his radar intercept officer, Jack Horver, are chosen for the mission. They walk out to the jet. The ground crew has loaded the Alpha Strike configuration. 4 Phoenix missiles on the belly pallets, 2 on the wing gloves. Wilson looks at the tires. They are bulging. The oleo struts, the shock absorbers on the landing gear, are compressed to the limit. She's heavy, the crew chief says, patting the nose of the jet. Wilson nods. He knows that taking off is the easy part. The hard part is what happens when he pulls the trigger. When a 1,000-pound missile leaves the rail, the center of gravity of the aircraft shifts instantly. When 6 of them leave in rapid succession, the aircraft becomes unstable. The engines can ingest the rocket smoke and stall. A compressor stall at 30,000 feet with a heavy jet is a death sentence. Let's light the fires, Wilson says. They climb the ladder. The canopy closes. The twin TF-30 engines whine to life, shaking the tarmac. They are in the air. The Pacific Ocean is a blue sheet below them. Music on, Horver says from the back seat. He isn't talking about the radio. He is talking about the electronic countermeasures. The test is simulating a jamming environment where the enemy is trying to blind their radar. Horver's head is buried in the scope. He is looking at the tactical information display, TID. It looks like a green fan. Suddenly, blips appear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The computer, the AWG-9, starts doing the math. It calculates the launch acceptability region for each target. It decides which missile will kill which drone. I have 6 tracks, Horver says, his voice calm, professional. System is ready. This is it. The moment of truth. Wilson steadies the aircraft. He has to fly straight and level. He cannot maneuver. He is a floating artillery battery now. Master arm on. The distance closes to 30 miles. Fox 3, Wilson yells. He squeezes the trigger on the stick. Whoosh. The first Phoenix missile drops from the front left pallet. For a split second, it falls like a stone. Then, the rocket motor ignites. A blinding white flash illuminates the cockpit. A trail of thick white smoke pours over the canopy. The jet shudders. It feels like hitting a pothole at 100 miles per hour. But Wilson doesn't stop. He can't stop. The firing sequence is automatic now. Fox 3. 3 seconds later, the second missile drops. Boom. Another kick. Fox 3. The third missile screams off the rail. By now, the cockpit is filled with the acrid smell of rocket propellant. The visibility is 0. Wilson is flying on instruments, trusting that his engines won't choke on the smoke. Fox 3. Fox 3. Fox 3. The sequence takes exactly 38 seconds. In less than a minute, 6,000 pounds of ordnance is gone. The F-14 suddenly feels light. It wants to jump into the sky. Wilson fights the stick to keep it level. The radar needs to keep looking at the targets to guide the missiles in their mid-course phase. Now 6 missiles are in the air. This is the part that terrified the Soviet experts. The missiles are not flying directly at the targets yet. They are lofting. They climb up into the thin air of the stratosphere, reaching speeds of Mach 3, then Mach 4, then Mach 5. They are flying parabolas. The AWG-9 radar in the tail of the F-14 is sending data link updates to all 6 missiles. It is telling Missile 1, turn left 2 degrees. It is telling Missile 4, target is diving, correct course. It is juggling 6 conversations at the speed of light. Then the final phase. The missiles reach the top of their arc. They tip over. Their internal radars switch on. They go pitbull. They are no longer dependent on the F-14. They are autonomous killers. Down at the control center at Point Mugu, the telemetry officers are watching the screens. The lines on the graph are converging. The first BQM, 3-4, is flying at Mach 0.9. Suddenly, its signal vanishes. Target 1, destroyed. The second drone is a T-33 jet. It takes a direct hit to the fuselage. The warhead doesn't even need to explode. The kinetic energy of a 1,000-pound object hitting it at Mach 5 vaporizes it. Target 2, destroyed. Target 3, destroyed. Target 4, destroyed. The 5th missile streaks toward its target. The proximity fuse the device that tells the warhead to blow up when it gets close suffers a glitch. It doesn't detonate, but the telemetry shows the missile passed within a few feet of the drone. In a real war, the shockwave would have ripped the wings off the bomber. It is scored as a lethal kill. The 6th missile has a hardware failure in the guidance system and wanders off into the ocean. But the result is undeniable. 4 direct hits, 1 lethal pass, in 38 seconds. 1 single American fighter jet has just wiped out an entire simulated bomber squadron. When Smoke Wilson and Jack Horver land back at Point Mugu, there is no band playing, but there is a sense of awe. The crew chief looks at the empty missile rails. The paint is scorched from the rocket exhaust. They have done the impossible. The footage of this test was classified at first, but word spreads fast. When the Soviet intelligence agencies finally get wind of what happened at Point Mugu, the mood in the Kremlin changes. Admiral Gorshkov realizes his math is wrong. If 1 F-14 can kill 6 bombers, then a carrier air wing with 24 F-14 can kill 144 bombers in the first minute of the fight. The saturation attack is no longer a guaranteed win. It is a suicide mission. The F-14 forced the Soviet Union to spend billions of rubles developing new tactics and new missiles to counter this threat. It bankrupted their strategy. But the most amazing part? The F-14 never fired a Phoenix missile in anger against the Soviet Union. The weapon was so terrifying that it acted as the ultimate deterrent. The Soviet bombers never attacked the carriers because they knew the Tomcat was waiting. So how did they do it? What was the secret sauce? It wasn't just raw power, it was the pulse Doppler technology. Let me explain this simply. Radar works by sending out a radio wave and waiting for it to bounce back. The problem is, the Earth also bounces back radio waves. The ocean waves bounce back. Mountains bounce back. To an old radar, a low-flying bomber looks exactly like a truck driving on a highway or a large wave. The AWG-9 used the Doppler shift. You know how a police siren sounds higher-pitched when it comes toward you and lower-pitched when it goes away? That is the Doppler effect. The AWG-9 ignored everything that wasn't moving toward it at a high speed. It filtered out the mountains. It filtered out the ground. It made the background invisible. Only the speeding bombers remained on the screen. This gave the F-14 look-down, shoot-down capability. It could fly at 30,000 feet, and shoot a cruise missile skimming the water. This was the technological leap that won the Cold War at sea. The F-14 Tomcat is retired now. It has been replaced by the F-18 Super Hornet and the F-35. The Phoenix missile is gone, replaced by the AMRAAM. But aviation historians still look back at November 22nd, 1973, with disbelief. In the history of warfare, there have been many tests, but rarely has a single test completely invalidated the enemy's entire naval strategy. Smoke Wilson and Jack Horver didn't just fire missiles that day. They fired a warning shot that was heard all the way in Moscow. They proved that in the modern age, air superiority isn't about who can turn tighter. It is about who can see further, think faster, and shoot first. The Soviet admirals were right to be terrified. Because on that day, the ocean stopped belonging to them. What do you think?
And that was the Cold War. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.